This is way better than any of us could have hoped for, as the Toronto Raptors traded for Brandon Ingram at this year's trade deadline to be a star for this team. But there were, of course, some questions about his fit around Scottie Barnes, whether or not he's worth that extension, and most importantly, how would he affect the culture that the Toronto Raptors have been building over the past few seasons, trying to be defensive first, trying to develop all of the young guys that we've really seen come together and cultivate an absolute dog mentality over the course of this year's Summer League. How would Brandon Ingram, who has a reputation of not being an elite defender, being a bit aloof at times on that end of the court, how would he impact this squad? Well, Brandon Ingram has now returned from injury, as we've discussed in a recent video, but everything that has come out regarding Brandon Ingram, from his quotes, from the coaches, from all of this type of stuff, indicate that not only is Brandon Ingram ready to buy in, ready to lock in on what this Toronto Raptors team is doing, this energy, this poise we're seeing from the Raptors over in Summer League is carrying over into the star players. So we're going to break down everything, all the developments that's pointing to this sign, and how this really makes the Toronto Raptors even more scary heading into next season. So lots of stuff to break down in this video, but folks, you guys have been crushing it supporting the channel as of late. Very, very close to 39,000 subscribers. So make sure, if you're enjoying the daily Toronto Raptors coverage and you don't want to miss a single thing going on with this team, you guys hit that subscribe button. But let's dive into it, because there's a lot of stuff going on with Summer League, with all the news, and of course, Brandon Ingram is the guy that everyone's been excited about because he's returned from injury. He had a long stint with that ankle injury lingering into the off season, but now that all seems to be behind him, and Ingram has given a lot of quotes that, as I said at the jump, has Raptors fans very, very excited. So let's dive into him, because first things first, Ingram came out and said, "I know people know my game a little bit, but I'm going to show a little bit more. Being the focal point of the offense, I get to show my playmaking skills, moving without the basketball, and scoring without the basketball in my hand. I get to show them I've been a three-point shooter most of my life, just all aspects of my game. I get to show them how much of a competitor I am." And I love hearing this from Brandon Ingram, because a few things here, right? He's coming in knowing the role that he should be taking on this Toronto Raptors team offensively. He's going to be the focal point. He's going to be the lead guy. And of course, Scottie Barnes is, the engine behind the offense. Brandon Ingram should be the number one scoring option. The guy averaged 22, 5, and 5 last season. He is a very, very effective scorer, frankly, from all areas of the basketball court. And, he talked about, hey, because he scores in all of these different areas. He's shifty, he does all this, but really bringing up the fact of how, hey, he's going to be able to be a three-point shooter on this team and score without the basketball. And that's something that a lot of people are hoping for, because there's a lot of ball-dominant players on this Raptors team. It's Scottie Barnes, RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley. All those guys need the ball in their hands to really get the maximum out of those players. So while Brandon Ingram is going to be the lead scoring option, he's going to be open and excited about doing it in different ways, and then of course being very competitive, which you just like to hear. You like to see that emphasized coming from a guy that's been in New Orleans, that hasn't been a great winning situation. You love to hear that Brandon Ingram come to the Toronto Raptors is looking to win. So that's a positive. And, on top of that, Darko talked about how he's pain free, he's moving well, he got stronger, and today's cleared to play full court action and be a part of any run. So that's exciting stuff there. And to build off of that, Brandon Ingram went on and saying that the recovery was way different than I expected. I never experienced that from an ankle injury. They always take about 2 to 3 weeks, so it was a little bit different. It was way more swollen than usual, and sometimes I didn't know when I was going to be healthy. But I continued to go through the process, feel better every week, and there was good communication from the training staff and coaches and everybody. They helped me out a lot through the process, and I'm finally here. So there was a lot of ambiguity. There was a lot of hidden stuff. There was a lot of not a lot of communication in regards to Brandon Ingram's injury recovery, how things were looking, and how things were developing out there on that front. So, Darko's now saying he's cleared for full court. He's all good on that. We're hearing it from the horse's mouth, and Brandon Ingram saying it himself, right? It was a weird situation. It wasn't him being soft or, holding out or tanking and doing this. He had a legitimate ankle injury that was very, very bad. But now things are in a good spot, and it's great that this happened earlier on in the summer, so he has the next couple months to really get back in game shape, get back into his rhythm, and improve on the areas he's talking about over the course of the season, and of course in his recent quotes. So, that's the latest on the injury update, which of course is very, very positive. We talked about some of this in the most recent vid, but now we're getting to the points that really have Raptors fans excited. So, what's going on in terms of Brandon Ingram's mindset? He's saying, we are making the playoffs for Sure. I think we're trying to build championship habits. What I saw the second half of the season, they play hard, they play really, really hard on the offense and defensive end. And this is something that's great to see because he is coming in locked in, ready to go, trying to win out there on the squad. Because there's been some people like, oh, maybe we tank one more season. The East is very competitive and all that stuff. And Brandon Ingram's having none of that. I like that. Last season we had a lot of quotes, a lot of things coming out about how, the Raptors were, Jakob Poeltl directly stated, this team's probably not going to be very good. He was right. That was the direction, a rebuilding year and stuff. But now, looking at the roster the Toronto Raptors have on this lineup, on this team, right? IQ, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Jakob Poeltl, all these dudes, along with the absolute dogs we have off the bench to, sprinkle in between those, that firepower in our starting lineup, Jamal Shead, Ochai Agbaji, and Jacoby Walter. In terms of Mobo, Shamshay's impressing people, Elijah Martin, Chucky Hepburn, all AJ Lawson at this point. All of these dudes are players that we should expect to have a serious, impact and role in this team. And then, of course, 3-point shooters like Gradey Dick and James Battle. There are really lots of options, lots of players on this team. So we are expected to be competitive. And the most exciting part from his quotes, from his discussion, is saying that on the offensive end, I always use the word swag. I think just having that on the floor, knowing who we are on the basketball floor, knowing our identity on the offensive end, already found our identity on the defensive end. I can't come in and mess that up. I'm going to be playing as hard as them. We'll be finding our identity on the offensive end, finding out what's best. And this is exactly what you want to hear from Brandon Ingram. That defensively, this dude is going to match the energy coming off from that bench unit. Jamal Shead, Hepburn, Martin, all these dudes. He is going to be locked in. He is going to be ready to go to play out there on that end of the floor. While on offense, he is going to have a serious impact, which he should. He's that talented of an offensive scorer. He's that talented of a bucket getter to really, come out and leave his mark out there on this team. Now, people might say, oh, Ben, but that's going to affect the ball's going to be out of Scottie's hands. What's going to go on with that? Well, I brought up his kind of shooting charts, right? Brandon Ingram could be effective out there on all different areas of the court. And he said, I'm excited to play make. I'm excited to score off the ball. He's going to do a lot of different things out there on the floor. And the Toronto Raptors last season, didn't have a lot of score, especially from those areas where Brandon Ingram was most effective, right? You look at that top left 3-point quarter spot, or right above the break on the left-hand side. The Raptors were at a very, very tough spot, below average in regards to their 3-point shooting percentages out there in those areas. That is Brandon Ingram's hot spot. That's where he really is able to knock down spots from the 3-point line. So he's going to be able to knock down a bunch of those above the break threes. And you see lots of red out there in the mid-range area. The Toronto Raptors didn't really have a lot of those, over the course of this season. So Brandon Ingram's going to be able to score in different areas, going to be able to score at a high volume, and that's exactly what you're hoping for when you bring in a guy as star-studded as, he is out there on the offensive end of the court. And, this team is expensive, so it's going to be tough to really improve the talent on this team, given what we have. So I like that this team is confident in regards to what they're capable of doing, what they're able to do in terms of the lineup that's already out here right now. So let me know what you guys think about all these Brandon Ingram comments. Are you as excited as I am about this Toronto Raptors team heading into next year? Let me know. Anyways, you guys are the best. Subscribe to the channel. I'm signing out. Cheers.